I said it to hurt him. I knew exactly where to strike, and I did. Those words slipped out before I could stop them. At least he didn't have a problem satisfying me. The moment they left my mouth, I saw something die in Daniel's eyes, something I didn't think could ever be revived. It started 2 nights earlier. We'd been distant for weeks. Small arguments turning into long silences, dinners turning cold before we even touched our plates. I kept blaming his mood swings, his late nights at work, his withdrawn tone. But if I'm honest, I'd changed too. There was a man at work, Ryan. Charismatic, smooth, and always saying the right things. He was everything Daniel hadn't been lately. Attentive, charming, and constantly reminding me how beautiful I was. I never planned for it to happen. Started with harmless texts. Compliment here, a laugh there. Then one night, after drinks at the office, lines blurred. I told myself it was a mistake. A one-time lapse. But when Daniel started asking questions. Who keeps texting you at midnight? Why do you smile when you look at your phone? Instead of feeling guilty, I got defensive. I hated the mirror he was holding up to me. That's what led to the argument. He came home from work earlier than usual that evening. His jaw tight, his voice too calm. "Emily, I need to ask you something," he said, placing his phone on the kitchen counter. Froze. "What's wrong?" He turned the screen toward me. It was a photo of me and Ryan, walking out of a restaurant. My hand brushing Ryan's arm. The kind of touch you can't explain away as friendly. My throat went dry. "It's not what it looks like." "Don't," he interrupted, his voice low, trembling with anger he was barely containing. "Just tell me the truth." And that's when I said it. The stupidest, cruelest thing I've ever said. "Oh, what, you think I'd cheat on you? Maybe if you were a real man, I wouldn't have to look elsewhere." He just stared at me, silent. His eyes didn't even blink. I remember the way his hand slowly lowered from the counter, how the muscles in his jaw tightened as if he was fighting not to scream. Then he simply said, "Thank you for confirming it," and walked out. The house felt wrong without him. I waited for him to come back that night. He didn't. He didn't come home the next night either. Or the one after that. By the 4th day, guilt turned to panic. Called his phone, no answer. Texted him, nothing. Even his mother wouldn't tell me where he was. When I finally saw him again, it was at the house, though it didn't feel like ours anymore. He'd returned, but only to pack a bag. He didn't yell. Didn't throw accusations. He was calm, too calm. That was worse than rage. "Daniel, please," I started, stepping toward him. "It was just a stupid argument. I didn't mean what I said." He zipped his bag and turned to face me. "Emily," he said softly, "you didn't just hurt me. You humiliated me. And you did it because it was true, didn't you?" I shook my head. "No, I was angry. Angry enough to tell the truth." His words sliced clean through me. Weeks passed. He moved into an apartment downtown. We talked only about bills, the mortgage, the logistics of a life splitting apart. Then one night I found something on his old laptop, something that made my stomach drop. An email from a private investigator. Attached were photos, me and Ryan outside that restaurant at a parking lot and once, entering a hotel. I had thought I'd been careful. I hadn't been. Daniel knew everything. But he hadn't confronted me again. He hadn't yelled or demanded an explanation. He just withdrew. That's when I realized what kind of punishment he'd chosen for me. Silence. No words, no closure. Just the haunting awareness that I destroyed the one person who truly loved me. 3 months later, our divorce papers arrived. He didn't ask for much. Just his share of the house sale, his car, and his peace. But the night before I signed the final page, I saw him again. He came to collect the last of his things. I was in the kitchen when he stepped inside, the same calm expression on his face. "Hey," I whispered. He nodded politely. "Hey." We stood there for a moment in silence. I could feel the weight of everything unsaid pressing between us. "I miss you," I finally said. My voice cracked. I know I don't deserve another chance, but please. Can we talk? Just once. He looked down, exhaled slowly. Talk about what, Emily? You made your choice. It wasn't a choice. Protested. I was lonely. You were distant, always tired. Because I was working to keep our life together, he snapped. For the first time his composure cracked. You think I wanted to be distant? I was killing myself to make sure we had everything we needed. Tears filled my eyes. I'm sorry. I know I was selfish. I should have come to you, not him, he finished, his voice breaking. He looked at me then, really looked, and it hurt. His eyes weren't filled with anger anymore. Just sadness. Exhaustion. You know what the worst part is, he said quietly. It's not that you cheated. It's that you mocked me for it. You took something I was already insecure about, and used it as a weapon. I didn't mean it. But you did, he said. And you can't unsay it. He slung his bag over his shoulder, gave one last look around the kitchen, then turned for the door. I wanted to stop him, to beg, to fall to my knees if I had to. But something inside me told me it was useless. When he closed the door behind him, it wasn't with anger. It was finality. Months passed. Ryan tried to stay in touch, but I couldn't even look at him without thinking of what I'd lost. The excitement I'd once felt around him now just felt cheap. Shallow. Meanwhile, Daniel, he moved on quietly. I'd see glimpses of him on social media. A new haircut, a new suit, a smile that looked almost genuine again. Then one day I saw a photo that shattered me. He was at a cafe, sitting across from a woman. She was laughing, her hand gently resting on his. The caption read, "Grateful for this man." My heart sank. It wasn't jealousy. It was realization that someone else was now seeing the softness I'd taken for granted, the patience I'd mocked, the love I'd shattered. A few weeks later, I ran into him by accident at the grocery store. It was surreal, like seeing a ghost you weren't ready to face. "Daniel," I said quietly. He looked up from his basket, startled. Then he gave a polite smile. "Emily." He looked good, healthier, confident. I forced a smile. "How have you been?" "Better," he said simply. "I saw your post," I admitted, my throat tightening. "She seems nice." "She is," he said, and for the first time his eyes softened, the way they used to when he looked at me. "She reminds me that I still have worth." I swallowed hard. "You always did." He nodded, then glanced at his watch. "Take care of yourself, Emily." I wanted to tell him everything. How sorry I was, how much I missed him, how every night I replayed that moment in the kitchen wishing I'd taken those words back. But I didn't. Because deep down, I knew he'd already forgiven me in his own way, just not enough to ever love me again. That night, I went home and sat on the edge of our old bed, staring at the empty space beside me. The silence felt heavier now, not because he wasn't there, but because I knew it was my fault. You never realize how fragile a man's heart is until you crush it with your own bitterness. And once it's broken, you can't fix it with apologies. Sometimes I still see him in my dreams, sitting across the kitchen table, smiling like he used to. And I always wake up hoping, just for a second, that maybe he's still beside me. But then I open my eyes, and the truth settles in again. I mocked my husband's manhood in anger. I betrayed his trust. And since that day he's never looked at me, or any part of me, the same. Because love, once poisoned by humiliation, never truly recovers. It only fades. Until there's nothing left but silence.